What's up, y'all? What's going on? It's your maniacdgod back at it again with another video, back at it again with another stream. If you were here for anime on Monday, I said that we were gonna watch a Sony video. However, I was pulling it up on YouTube and it says I already watched it. I don't remember watching it, but I don't remember a lot of things. So if I did watch it, I didn't want to like get halfway through the video and be like, oh yeah, I've seen this already, and then not have like actual reactions. So we're gonna watch a different documentary. We're gonna watch about the creation and I don't know about like the functioning, but just like learn about like how I don't know what's in the video, but it's talking about the company Juul. So we're gonna see what Juul's talking about. Sean Kraft, if you're seeing this, I appreciate the subscription. If you're seeing this video and you like what you see, sub to the channel. I post a lot of anime, manga. Well, not a lot of manga. A lot of anime, one manga, a lot of One Piece, and then these random history. I guess Juul's technically not history. It's kind of history because the company's already been made, but it's like kind of current day stuff. So we do like current events and history, whatnot, that type of shindig. So without any further delay, we're gonna get into this video, man. Maniacs Media, yeah, y'all go subscribe to Maniacs Media. It's a great channel.
Juul markets itself as an alternative to traditional cigarettes, and the e-cigarette giant says its mission is to improve the lives of the world's 1 billion adult smokers. It's not only former smokers that you're converting.
There's been a huge surge of high schoolers using e-cigarettes or vaping.
Yo, I had a friend named Richard in high school. He loved them shits. I have a video of him smoking 2 at once. He said he did up to 6 at once.
Linked to vaping.
Crazy.
You're nothing but a marketer of a poison, and your target has been young people.
You initially think you're saving the world, and then all of a sudden, like, people are saying, no, you're the devil.
In 2018, Juul was a $38 billion company with an ambitious mission: to give the world's 1 billion cigarette smokers a better, healthier alternative. But just 5 years later, Juul's value had plummeted 95% below its peak, and its mission statement now had an extra sentence: to combat underage usage of their products. Because despite Juul's good intentions, they got millions of underage kids addicted and created a whole new generation of smokers.
They did. I remember that.
The
I was
story
around
of
for
two
that,
young
man.
entrepreneurs who set out to destroy big tobacco, but who ultimately ended up becoming big tobacco. So get ready, because the rise and fall of Juul.
Shit, what's their
is
stock
going
price
to be
at
a
right now? I
wild
might
ride.
invest. All you who don't invest, download Robinhood right now. Throw some money into the SPY, and do that every week. Saving money is not going to make you financially
2004,
free.
Two product design students called Adam Bowen and James Monsees crossed paths at Stanford University. Stanford had banned smoking on campus over a decade ago. So during late nights in the design studio, Adam and James snuck out for a smoke break. And because they were both obsessed with design, they looked at their cigarettes and wondered if they could somehow be improved with technology. They realized that the reason many smokers couldn't quit despite the obvious health risks was because they missed the rituals associated with smoking. So Adam and James teamed up to design a product that kept the relaxing, social, and fun elements of smoking, but removed the most harmful aspects. Whilst doing research for their idea, Adam and James stumbled upon something fascinating. They uncovered thousands of emails, business plans, product research, and scientific studies which revealed that big tobacco had secretly been playing with the idea of a safer cigarette since the early 1950s.
And they just didn't?
For big tobacco, it wasn't ideal that their product kills their customers. So they tried to make a cigarette that was just as addictive, but didn't cause cancer. They found that by heating the tobacco inside cigarettes into a vapor, the mix of chemicals produced in the smoke was less toxic than if they were to burn the tobacco completely. The research was promising, but big tobacco had run into a dilemma. Introducing a safer cigarette basically meant admitting that all regular cigarettes were unsafe. So to avoid destroying their own industry, they didn't release any products with this technology
That's insane.
for decades. But Adam and James...
We want to create something healthier for our customers, but if we create something healthy for our customers, we have to admit that our current products are unhealthy, which is widely known. I guess that's a recent development. They said this has been since the 1950s. A lot of people were smoking for a lot longer than that, and I think, because I remember like the stop smoking ads when I was younger, and I remember that people used to smoke like I don't remember people used to smoke, but I get told like people used to smoke everywhere. Like we used to be like London, like everybody just be smoking everywhere. We don't do that anymore, so I guess back then it would probably be bad to announce that cigarettes are bad for you. But if you're, I was thinking like if you're introducing a healthier one, it shows you care, but it's also like, how can I trust this company now that is just admitting that they've been giving me some poison? How do I trust that their new thing isn't poison? It's a conundrum, man. I kind of get it. It's not a good thing to do, but I
Big
get it.
Tobacco left off and decided to start their own business to work on this.
Mm.
There were 1 billion
forgot I put it on
cigarette
normal
smokers
speed.
in the world. And so Adam and James figured this was not only a way they could make obscene amounts of money, but also a way to save lives. What could go wrong?
Not doing tests for years on how the long-term effects can affect people, or what long-term
After
side effects may
graduating,
occur.
Adam and James started their company, which they initially called Plume. The company's mission was to save 1 billion lives, so they genuinely believed that they were the good guys and that big tobacco was the enemy. By mid-2007, Plume had secured $400,000 in funding from investors, more than enough to hire employees and build a prototype. But from the start, they ran into several issues. Firstly, the early prototypes of the Plume were faulty, and one of them exploded inside the office. And secondly, it seemed like Adam and James's idea for a safer cigarette
Yeah, you can't
had
sell that to
competition.
people if it's
Similar products were
exploding.
already coming to the market. The first e-cigarette to get any real attention was called Enjoy, and soon the vaping industry was taking flight. But Adam and James weren't too worried by the competition. Most vapes were big, tacky, and complicated to use, whereas Adam and James were design geeks, and put a lot of thought into the product design. And so when the Plume was ready to ship in 2009, it was a pretty sleek-looking product. Unfortunately, as good as the Plume looked, in practice it had lots of issues. It still shocked or burned people sometimes, and to fuel it, you had to manually fill a cartridge with butane, which is basically lighter fluid, so it was highly flammable. In other words, it was complicated and dangerous.
Not a good idea.
Not just
Not a
that,
good
people would
combination.
often take 2 Plumes together just to get a higher nicotine dose, which was a clear sign that the product wasn't doing its job very well. It simply wasn't as satisfying as the cigarette.
Reminds me of Richard. He was
So
smoking
basically,
like 6
smokers
of them
thought the Plume
things.
was interesting, but it wasn't going to change the world. To Adam and James, the Plume's failure was devastating. They had worked on it for years with relatively little success, and thus the company was now in crisis. They came to the depressing realization they needed to start over from scratch. And that would lead to a new product that they would call the Juul.
It's a cool design, but I don't get the name. Are they gonna explain the name?
To become successful, the Juul needed to improve on both major aspects of the Plume, design and engineering. So on the design side, James focused on making the Juul a tech product. It had to be subtle, minimalistic, and intuitively easy to use. To achieve that, he gave the Juul a modern design with just 2 parts, a body and a pod. Because of the way these were shaped, everyone instantly knew exactly how they fit together. Over on the engineering side, Adam focused on solving the fundamental problem of user satisfaction. You see,
Of
the
not
Juul had to be
burning.
strong enough to satisfy cigarette smokers, but
There.
currently that was impossible. The pure nicotine which was added to vape liquids is naturally bitter, so if Adam matched the nicotine content of a cigarette, the taste was intolerable. But then Adam discovered tobacco industry research on nicotine salts, which dampen the taste of nicotine, burn the throat much less, and can be loaded with pretty much any flavor.
Where?
Because of this, Adam could amp up an e-liquid's
Nicotine
nicotine content
salts?
to the
That's
point
how
where
they
it was
do
actually
it?
stronger than a cigarette, smoother, and tasted of something nice like mango or creme brulee. And so, as Adam and James reflected on the new product they'd made, they realized that they'd done something remarkable. They had essentially reinvented smoking. You see, before the Juul, the cigarette was the holy grail of all products. Not only are they easy and cheap to manufacture, but the nicotine inside can be as addictive as heroin, so you normally have a customer for life.
As
One, of course,
heroin?
the fatal flaw of cigarettes was the health impact on their customers. However, since Juul didn't contain tobacco, people generally believed the Juul was a safer alternative to cigarettes. And from a business perspective, the Juul could be an even more lucrative product. Whilst the Juul kept all the positive aspects people associated with cigarettes, nicotine salts were far more powerful than tobacco, so it was even more addictive. Plus, a Juul could also be used indoors without leaving a horrible smell behind. And while cigarettes burn out, a Juul could be pulled out and put away instantly, meaning people could smoke anywhere, all day if they wanted to. And not just that, the Juul was cool.
That's the problem
It
with
had a
it. You
bunch of
can't
flavors,
smoke all
and it
day.
looked like something Apple would make. In fact, people later called it the iPhone of e-cigarettes. So naturally, Adam and James were
Like,
incredibly excited about the Juul.
those things are so easy to
This
just
was
puff
it.
on.
This is how they were going to save 1 billion lives. All
have
they had
to
to do
hide
now
mine in
was
the
prepare
car.
their launch
I don't
campaign,
use
because they only
Juuls,
had one
but
shot at it. If the campaign
just gotta
flopped,
hide that
they
bitch in
wouldn't
the
get a second
car
chance.
or something
But
like
if they got
that,
it
so I
right,
don't just
Juul
be
could
puffing on
genuinely
all
change the
day.
world. Now, the FDA had a strict set of regulations for tobacco products, but the Juul didn't have any tobacco in it. So, whereas traditional cigarettes were extremely restricted in how they could advertise, Juul was free to advertise.
Gotta
without
love
any
beating
real
around
oversight or
regulations.
regulation. And so, to kick their launch campaign off, Adam and James hired Richard Mumby, an influencer who specialized in lifestyle advertising. And this is where things started to go horribly wrong.
Dun dun dun.
Adam and James created Juul to help people quit cigarettes. But Juul's new marketing team thought the best way to advertise the product was to make it look cool. And the best way to do that was to get it in the hands of as many young people as possible. The result was a huge social media marketing campaign called #Vaporized, which was filled with colorfully dressed, healthy, dancing millennials. Juul's marketing was eerily similar to what tobacco companies had done many years ago to get new generations hooked on their product. Get
The only
people
problem
dancing
is
and having a good time. But whereas tobacco companies
young
couldn't
people-
advertise on TV or billboards anymore due to regulation,
Like if you're on
Juul
social
could.
media, it's gonna be a
The
lot of
regulators
young
hadn't
people
caught
on
up
there.
yet. For the product launch, Juul hosted influencer parties where thousands of Juuls were given away. It's a classic dealer tactic. The first one is free to get you hooked. And sure enough, Juul gave out plenty of free samples to popular influencers who could help promote it. It seemed like Juul had totally forgotten its original mission of helping people quit cigarettes, and instead, the marketing team were just trying to get as many new customers as possible. The ads weren't targeted at smokers trying to quit, it was targeted at young people wanting to look cool. It's even reported
That's
Juul
a
took out
good
ads
point.
on Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, literally websites for kids, and they sold their products online without any age verification. The tragedy was, Juul's product genuinely could help
That's a
smokers
good
quit
point, man.
cigarettes,
Marketing
but the marketing was instead
really
reaching millions of teenagers
make or
who
break
never
your
used
whole
smoke
game
before,
plan.
and had no intention of doing so until they heard about Juul. However, after the Juul officially launched in 2016, the FDA hit them with some news that changed everything.
God dang that.
To make up for
FDA,
their lack of
man.
regulation on e-cigarette products, the FDA announced any new products would need to go through a series of extensive checks before being released. Any existing products on the market could continue selling for 2 more years, but to make even the slightest modification, they would have to go through these new FDA checks, which could take years. This put Adam and James in a desperate position, because their product still had some major issues. Since the Juul was so compact, the liquid inside the pods often sprayed out when people took a puff, which was painful and dangerous. So if they didn't fix their product, it was never going to catch on. Already, some shops had stopped selling the Juul.
A
due to
lot
this
of
issue.
THC
But
vapes
because
do
of the
that.
FDA's new
It's
rules, Juul
terrible.
were unable to make any modifications to their product without going through these extensive FDA checks. So, Juul decided to re-engineer the pods without telling the FDA. Now, they were hiding a secret. But once they
Shit.
were able to improve the product, in early 2016...
I mean,
Juul
I'm
was
very
still bleeding.
anti-FDA,
And so the board
but
decided to remove James as CEO. This turned out to be
That's,
premature. As summer got underway, sales started picking up. Then they picked up even more, and then they
you
skyrocketed.
can't hide from the FDA.
It turns out the vaporized
They
marketing
will find
campaign
you.
had been incredibly effective, but since it was largely based on word of mouth, it had just taken a little time for Juul to spread around the country. And as Juul had now secretly improved their product, by early 2017, social media was filled with celebrities and influencers using Juuls, which was the perfect marketing to make it look cool. So, Juul started hiring hundreds of new employees and expanding to other countries. Juul was now growing so fast that by the end of the year, it was the fastest company ever to reach a 10 billion valuation, 4 times faster than Facebook. However, as the months went by, Juul started realizing the real reason for the large number of sales. The majority of new
Kitties.
Juul users were actually non-smokers who now got hooked on nicotine, and many of them were teenagers. And then, worrying posts started popping up.
I started having the cravings more often. I am definitely so f***ing addicted to vaping.
And it wasn't this feeling of, oh, I really want nicotine. We need it.
Before 2017, nicotine products were pretty uncommon among minors. Cigarettes were mostly seen as gross by younger generations.
Imagine
and
being
wouldn't be
addicted to
used as much.
something.
But Juul's marketing had made smoking popular again. And their many
Couldn't be
different
me.
flavors were an irresistible introduction to smoking for many teens.
I say
Some
that like
kids
I'm
thought they were
not
just smoking
taking
water
like
vapor.
500
In
grams of
reality,
caffeine
one
a
Juul
day.
pod contained about as much
Sorry,
nicotine as
milligrams.
20 cigarettes.
Don't take
So
500
it was
grams
even
of
more
caffeine.
addictive than
You will
cigarettes.
die.
Plus, because e-cigarettes didn't have as many restrictions, you'd see people vape in bars and clubs. People who may have gone out for an occasional cigarette could now smoke constantly at home as it didn't smell. And since the Juul was easy to conceal, it became a perfect way for middle school and high school kids to vape without getting caught. Kids would literally use them in class under their desks and charge their Juuls openly from their computer as it just looked like a USB drive. Plus, with cigarettes, you get to
I definitely seen that.
But with Juul, the only stop signal is getting to the end of the pod, which is the nicotine equivalent of an entire pack of cigarettes. So people were smoking far more. You had 15-year-old kids doing the vape equivalent of chain smoking several packs a day. And more kids started using it.
I didn't know it was that bad. One pot
I
is
became
equal
so
to
addicted to vaping
pack
that
of
it
cigarettes?
really took over my everything. I was even a gymnast, and I remember not having enough energy to do the things I needed to do.
The proportion of high school teenagers using e-cigarettes has reached nothing short of an epidemic level.
Research suggests nicotine is dangerous for a developing brain and can have lifelong effects, not to mention links to depression and anxiety. But teens didn't even realize they were getting addicted.
It
was
does
only
the
when they tried to
opposite.
quit that they noticed they didn't feel good if they didn't smoke. In response to this, Juul then pulled another move out of the big tobacco playbook. They went into schools to warn kids about vaping. But this was really a wolf in sheep's clothing. Because of course, if you tell kids they shouldn't do something, it plants the idea they want to do it and rebel. And several students said that when the Juul representatives came to their school, it felt a bit like a sales pitch in disguise. And things were about to get worse.
Juul in school. LOL.
Do you want to create videos like this? If so, you're going to want to know about today's sponsor, Storyblocks. I've been using Storyblocks for years now, as they have over 1 million video clips, templates, songs.
Sorry, good ads and all, but we skipped those. Big Tobacco. Did they get into a war with Big Tobacco, or they are now Big Tobacco?
Into a teenage epidemic, they completely changed their advertising strategy so it didn't appeal to minors. But the damage was already done. And so Juul was in a terrible position when they faced their next challenge. The 2 years since the FDA made their first push towards regulating e-cigarettes were coming to an end. And now Juul had to undergo a process where they essentially had to prove their product was a net public health benefit to the United States. Given that millions of kids were getting addicted to Juuls at the time, they would have a hard time proving that was the case.
Yeah, it's a hard pitch to
increase in
make.
vape use in high schools, and almost a 60% increase in middle schools. More than 3 million high school students had taken up the habit, so around 1 in every 5 high school students was vaping, and Juul was by far the most popular brand. So the FDA sprung into action and forced Juul to provide their internal documents for review. Around this time, Juul also drew the attention of Altria, the biggest cigarette manufacturer in the US. In the first quarter of 2018, cigarette sales had fallen more than what Altria's models suggested they should have, and they blamed this exclusively on Juul replacing cigarettes. Whilst Altria had launched its own e-cigarette, Juul sales were far ahead of them and doubling every 3 months. Altria considered this a genuine threat to their entire business. But as the pressure on Juul intensified due to the negative
I know
media
Altria
attention
for
and
something
the
else.
FDA
I
review,
can't think
the
of what
company
it
was in a
is.
vulnerable position, and Altria saw this as an opportunity. They figured if you can't beat them, buy them. So in December 2018, Altria executives met with Juul executives. Rumors began circulating around the company, and on the 20th of December, it was officially announced. Altria was buying a 35% stake in Juul in exchange for a $12.8 billion investment, valuing the company at over $38 billion. Thanks to the stock they owned, Juul's founders Adam and James became billionaires overnight. But all the Juul employees were thinking the exact same thing. They were now working for the enemy. A big chunk of the company was now owned by Big Tobacco, the very industry they'd supposedly been trying to destroy.
Yeah, they did
The
become
original
Big
dream of
Tobacco.
Juul was dead.
Thought they're gonna say they were gonna
Hey
fight
legends,
Big
it's John
Tobacco.
here, creator of Magnates Media.
Nope.
Just wanted to quickly share some exciting news with you.
Decided to
So
join
for those who
them.
don't know, Magnates Media is not some big company. I literally started this channel by myself from my bedroom, making terrible videos. I couldn't even afford a tripod.
Crisis.
The FDA made a discovery in the documents Juul provided for them. Not only had Juul intentionally targeted non-smokers in their initial marketing campaign, but they hadn't even been able to get concrete evidence for many of their health claims about the benefits of vaping over smoking. As a result, Congress asked James to testify under oath, and the hearing was an embarrassment to Juul.
You, sir, are an example to me of the worst of the Bay Area. You don't ask for permission, you ask for forgiveness. You're nothing but a marketer of a poison, and your target has been young people.
And then, as Juul was nearing its breaking point, the worst possible thing that could have happened, happened.
A high school student collapsing after vaping and was rushed to the hospital.
It took 2 days for my lungs to fail and I almost died.
Number of deaths linked to vaping rising today.
My chest felt like it was collapsing and tightening up and I couldn't breathe.
In July 2019, hospitals around the US started reporting multiple cases of teenagers with eerily similar symptoms. throat pain, chest pain, lung damage, respiratory failure, and lung collapse. 68
Lung
teenagers
collapse
tragically
is
passed away,
nuts.
and among every patient, they all had one thing in common. They were all heavy vapors. As news of this spread, social media was filled with people destroying their Juuls. Protesters gathered around their office, and Juul sales immediately nosedived. Now, despite the panic, Juul wasn't really at fault here. The hospitalizations were actually caused by black market cannabis vape oils diluted with vitamin E acetate. So the problem was that people were using the Juul black market cannabis vape oils diluted with vitamin E acetate. The hospitalizations were actually caused by black...
Cause I don't anymore. See, this is why I stopped vaping not tobacco, cannabis products, is because I was like, I don't really know what's in this cartridge. But I don't get like black market ones. I got them from the smoke shop, but what if the smoke shop is getting them from black market places?
Market cannabis vape oils.
Lung collapse is kind of nasty.
So the problem was
that's
that
not
people were
something you
using
want
the
to be
Juul
involved
device,
with.
but not the official Juul pods. But regardless, all eyes were on Juul because of the teen vaping epidemic. So they took the public beating for this tragedy. The Centers for Disease Control took a very public stance against vaping, and individual states hit Juul with a barrage of lawsuits, threatening to take all flavored products off the market. Juul has never been able to recover from this event. Both of the original founders resigned, and all major positions at Juul were soon filled by big tobacco executives. Any remaining members of the original Juul team were completely demoralized. They joined this company for an important mission, and now it felt like Juul had been completely taken over by big tobacco. In fact, much of the entire e-cigarette market was captured by tobacco companies. In 2022, the FDA rejected Juul's application, trying to prove that their product was a net public health benefit, and asked them to take Juul off the market. But Juul was able to appeal the decision. Since then, though, Juul has settled thousands of lawsuits.
Juul's a privately held company.
$3 billion in fines, and Juul's valuation fell to around $450 million, 95% down from its peak. Whilst the peak of the teen vaping epidemic was in 2019, newer brands have capitalized on this new generation of smokers, and they've used many of Juul's tactics, like using fun-sounding flavors, influencer marketing, and avoiding regulation through new technologies like synthetic nicotine. Since this is all relatively new, and avoiding regulation...
The nicotine is created in a laboratory rather than tobacco leads to synthetic nicotine. Though synthetic nicotine has been around for some time, only reason oh shit, the puff bar. Interesting.
Technologies like synthetic nicotine. Since this is all relatively new, we still don't really know the long-term effects of Juul and vaping yet. Juul's CEO even openly admitted that. But amongst teenagers, there's understandably frustration. One user said, "I'm unfortunately a Gen Z who grew up never wanting to smoke, but in high school, everyone was vaping. I'm also very angry because at the time I started vaping, I was told it was completely harmless and it was basically inhaling water vapor. My generation got so screwed. We were so close to...
I heard that too, that it was water vapor.
And companies like Juul partnering with big tobacco ruined this for us. However, to this day, the public health community is still massively divided on the issue of vaping. Because on one hand, Juul really was helping cigarette smokers quit. Vapes contain only a tiny fraction of the carcinogens found in cigarettes, and there were plenty of people who made the switch from cigarettes to Juul and were better off for it, as it helped them cut out tobacco. But whilst it's certainly possible cigarette smokers might be better off vaping from a health perspective, there's also no denying that Juuls were much more addictive than cigarettes, and that millions of people who would have never smoked in the first place only started because of Juul. Millions of minors are now addicted to e-cigarettes, so some feel that by making it so appealing to teenagers, they undid much of the progress that had been made on cutting down on smoking amongst younger generations. Whilst move fast and break things is a popular mantra for tech companies, when it comes to health, Juul is a case study in how you actually can move too fast, and then may never recover. So when it comes to Juul's legacy, there's both good and bad. But one thing that's clear about this story is that ever since the 1950s, Big Tobacco wanted to create a product that was just as addictive as a cigarette, but didn't kill its customers. We also note that in 2007, when Juul started, it looked like Big Tobacco was running out of new young customers, or as they called them, replacement smokers. Ironically, Juul actually solved both of these problems for them. They created a less dangerous and more addictive product than a cigarette, and then they
sold the whole company right to them.
So in the end, did Juul just do Big Tobacco's dirty work for them? I hope you found the story of Juul interesting.
It 100% did. They 100% did. I know that wasn't their intention. That's exactly what they did. Unfortunate, but that's what happened, man. This was a one of the more tame documentaries we watched. There was no slave labor, which has been a reoccurring theme in all these companies that we've been seeing. So that's a positive. And, you know, they started with altruism, but, you know, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So things turned down really quickly. But, good stream, good video. Y'all follow Maniacs Media. It's a really good channel. They have really good videos. That's all I got for y'all, man. We'll be back here on Friday for One Piece manga. I'll catch you on the flip side. Y'all be safe. Y'all be easy. Peace out.